What if the most significant threat to our society isn't a few truly evil people, but rather the quiet, creeping surrender of ordinary people's ability to think for themselves? What if the real danger is not malevolence, but a different kind of force entirely, a powerful, parasitic condition of the mind that can hijack even the most intelligent individuals and turn them into agents of destruction? We often comfort ourselves with the belief that intelligence is a shield against such threats. We assume that smart people are immune to propaganda, immune to mass hysteria, and incapable of profound moral failure. But history, from the horrors of the 20th century to the confusing chaos of today, tells a far more sobering story. It's a narrative that the German theologian and pastor, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, witnessed firsthand, and it's one that is now repeating itself with alarming precision in our modern, hyperconnected world. The collapse of independent thought. Consider the following scenarios, which are no longer hypothetical. A celebrated scientist with a lifetime of academic rigor behind them begins to share baseless conspiracy theories on social media. A respected teacher, once known for their compassion and reason, starts espousing ideologies that dehumanize entire groups of people. A devoted parent, driven by a desperate desire to protect their children, makes dangerous decisions based on viral misinformation. These are not the actions of cartoonish villains. They are the actions of people just like us, thoughtful, decent, and well-meaning individuals who have fallen prey to what Bonhoeffer identified as one of the most dangerous forces in human society: stupidity. This isn't the stupidity of a simple mistake or a lack of knowledge. It's not a punchline or an insult. Bonhoeffer was referring to a far darker phenomenon, a kind of moral and intellectual paralysis. It's a condition where the capacity for critical reflection, reasoned debate, and self-correction is systematically shut down. This isn't accomplished through physical force but through powerful social and psychological pressures that are almost impossible to resist. This insidious surrender is not something that happens to other people, it is a constant and present danger to us all. The machinery of obedience. Bonhoeffer's insights are not merely philosophical, they are echoed by some of the most chilling experiments in modern psychology. In 1961, Yale psychologist Stanley Milgram set out to understand obedience to authority figures. In his now infamous experiment, participants were instructed to deliver what they believed were increasingly powerful electric shocks to a stranger in another room. As the voltage supposedly increased and the recipients' fake screams of agony grew louder, participants showed clear signs of distress and hesitation. Yet, a staggering 65% of them continued to administer shocks to what they believed was a fatal level, simply because an authority figure in a lab coat told them to do so. The participants were not sociopaths or sadists, they were ordinary, intelligent people, teachers, engineers, and secretaries, who, under the enormous weight of authority and group pressure, suspended their moral judgment. Milgram's experiment provided a disturbing scientific parallel to Bonhoeffer's observations of Nazi Germany, the terrifying ease with which seemingly normal, intelligent individuals can become instruments of evil when they stop thinking for themselves and defer to external power. Bonhoeffer's crucial insight, a warning from a prison cell. Born in 1906, Dietrich Bonhoeffer came from an elite, highly intellectual family. His father was a renowned psychiatrist, and his upbringing was steeped in the values of reason, academic rigor, and moral debate. As a theologian and pastor, he placed his faith in the power of education and the sanctity of truth. However, as Hitler's regime gained momentum, Bonhoeffer watched in horror as his colleagues, professors, clergy, doctors, and other intellectuals, chose to either actively support the Nazi Party or remain silent in the face of its atrocities. He realized with devastating clarity that intelligence and education were not adequate safeguards against moral collapse. In fact, he observed that highly intelligent people were often better at rationalizing their surrender. From a Gestapo prison cell in 1943, where he was incarcerated for his role in a plot to assassinate Hitler, Bonhoeffer penned his most haunting words on the topic. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasoning is of no use. Facts that contradict personal prejudices can simply be disbelieved, Indeed, the fool can take a fact that contradicts his prejudice and simply set it aside as inconsequential. In all this the fool is self-satisfied and, being easily irritated, becomes dangerous by going on the attack. The difference between evil and stupidity. Bonhoeffer posited a critical distinction: evil is a destructive force that, in some ways, is self-aware. It knows it is wrong and often operates in secrecy, eventually breaking down under the weight of guilt, opposition, or exposure. But stupidity, Bonhoeffer argued, is fundamentally different. It wears the mask of righteousness, believing it is acting for the greater good. This self-satisfied certainty makes it impervious to correction and devastatingly effective. Stupidity, in Bonhoeffer's definition, is not a mental handicap, it is a surrender of the will to understand. It's a choice to stop thinking and to accept pre-packaged ideas, and it almost always serves power. Bonhoeffer wrote, "The fact that the stupid person is often stubborn must not blind us to the fact that he is not independent, he is under the sway of something stronger. That something stronger is often the collective will of a group, an institution, or a powerful ideology." The social roots of intellectual surrender. Bonhoeffer astutely recognized that stupidity is not a purely individual psychological issue but a deeply sociological one. It does not arise in isolation but thrives in groups, movements, and institutions where individuals submerge their identity into the collective. By parroting slogans, adopting ideologies, and following the crowd, people lose their individual capacity for critical thought. This idea was empirically validated by psychologist Solomon Asch in the 1950s. In his famous conformity experiments, participants were placed in a group where everyone else was a confederate who intentionally gave an obviously wrong answer to a simple question. Despite knowing the correct answer, a staggering 75% of participants conformed to the group's wrong answer at least once. The discomfort of standing alone, of being the dissenter, was a greater burden than the discomfort of being wrong. Now, consider the profound impact of social media on this already vulnerable human tendency. Echo chambers and algorithmic stupidity. In the digital age, the phenomenon of conformity has been automated and amplified to a degree Bonhoeffer could never have imagined. The algorithms that power platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok are not designed to inform us, they are designed to engage us. And what engages us most effectively is not careful, nuanced reasoning but rather emotional stimulation, tribal identity, and confirmation of what we already believe to be true. From propaganda to precision weaponry. Bonhoeffer witnessed the rise of Nazi propaganda, which used radio and newspapers to manipulate the masses. What he could not have foreseen was the emergence of AI-driven manipulation. We are now in an era where artificial intelligence can analyze our every scroll, pause, and emotional reaction to map our deepest fears, our doubts, and our cognitive biases. This data is then used to weaponize information, bypassing our rational minds with surgical precision. We are no longer simply fighting propaganda, we are contending with artificial stupidity, an algorithmic system engineered to exploit our most fundamental psychological weaknesses. How do we resist? The call for costly grace. Bonhoeffer did not believe that resistance was easy, he called it costly grace. He believed that genuine resistance required a rare virtue, intellectual courage, the bravery to think, to speak, and to act ethically even when doing so comes at a personal price. Today, this intellectual courage can take many forms. Practice intellectual friction, actively seek out well-reasoned arguments from people with whom you fundamentally disagree. Engage in these conversations not to win, but to rigorously test the strength and validity of your own ideas. The goal is to build the habit of intellectual scrutiny. Embrace productive ignorance. The next time you find yourself absolutely certain about a belief, ask yourself, what specific evidence would it take for me to change my mind? If you cannot articulate a single piece of evidence that would alter your perspective, you may be caught in a cognitive trap. Pause before you share, before you post, like, or share something on social media, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, am I sharing this because it's demonstrably true, or because it simply feels good to express? Fact-checking and a moment of pause can be a revolutionary act. Say, I don't know. In a culture that rewards confident ignorance, admitting uncertainty is a powerful and courageous act. It reclaims your intellectual autonomy and opens the door to genuine learning. Build mental bandwidth, advocate for and support systems that reduce economic stress and social anxiety. When people are not constantly worried about their survival, they regain the mental space necessary for deep reflection, critical analysis, and intellectual growth. Thinking is far easier when survival isn't the primary concern. A challenge from the past to the present. Bonhoeffer's final, haunting question remains the most relevant: who stands fast? Who will stand firm when the world demands conformity? Who will maintain their commitment to truth when it comes at a personal cost? Who will resist the seductive comfort of silence and intellectual surrender? The answer, Bonhoeffer reminds us, is not found in superior intelligence. It is found in daily practice and in moral courage. It is found in our willingness to think critically, to question authority, and to remain fully human in the face of dehumanizing systems. The real battle of our time is not between good and evil, but between thinking and surrender. The tragedy is that intellectual surrender often feels like freedom, the freedom from doubt, from complexity, from discomfort. Certainty is seductive, and simplicity is comfortable. But Bonhoeffer reminds us that the moment we stop thinking, we cease to be fully human. To reclaim our dignity, we must reclaim our minds. We must consciously choose discomfort over delusion, curiosity over certainty, and reflection over reaction. Because in a world that profits from our collective stupidity, the simple act of thinking becomes a truly radical act. Your challenge this week. Here's a practical way to put this into practice. Choose one belief you hold deeply, whether it's political, personal, or philosophical. Then, dedicate 30 minutes to actively seeking out the best, most articulate arguments against it. The goal is not to become paralyzed by doubt but to test your intellectual resilience. If your belief survives this scrutiny, you will hold it with a deeper clarity and conviction. If it doesn't, you will have gained something far more precious than being right, you will have grown. What is one belief you are willing to question this week?